Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to announce that this video today is sponsored by Warner Brothers, and it is to celebrate the release of the film The Curse of the Weeping Woman. For the makeup, I created my own prosthetic version. I really wanted to emphasize the rotten and decayed flesh. After watching the advanced screening of the movie, I got a really good insight into the background knowledge of the character. The myth is that she drowned her own two children in a jealous rage to get back at her husband. Filled with so much regret, La Llorona now wanders the earth in search for her children. She took her own life and is constantly weeping and looking for them. Overall, it's a very sad urban legend and a myth used to scare children into behaving so that La Llorona won't come and take them away and keep them for herself. So let me know in the comments if this is a movie that you're interested in seeing, and if you like the idea of an urban legend being brought to life and represented through film. In this video, I will also show you how to create the costume along with the prosthetic makeup, so if you're interested in seeing how to do this, then please keep on watching. To create my prosthetic today, I'm using a simple liquid latex paste. The easiest way to do this is adding the liquid into the bowl first and scooping in your thickening agent a spoonful at a time. I like to use plain flour, but you can also use baby powder as well. Gently mixing it and then adjusting it to your personal preference. I like to work with something that is slightly smoother and also sticks to the spoon when you turn it upside down. I'm sculpting on a face cast today, but you can use a mannequin head. I start out by scooping on the paste and sculpting with my fingers. If you're using a sculpting tool, you can also dip that into regular latex, and that's going to give you ease in blending out those edges. So once you start to get your shapes down, you can then blend it into the surface with regular latex. This is going to give an overall smoothing effect, so you can gently rub and smooth that down into the rest of the face. I worked really hard to get a prominent brow bone and cheekbones because I wanted this look to be very bloated and waterlogged. The effects of being drowned and left underwater for a long period of time are a swollen and bleached face with a really wrinkled effect. To remove this, I let it dry overnight, heavily powdered it, and then gently worked my way from the edges outwards to the inside of the face. It should peel off nice and easy. To finish off the prosthetic, apply one more coat on the front and back of the powder and then cut it up into smaller pieces so it's easier for application. I'm starting out wearing my costume to make my life a little bit easier. The whole top half of this was custom handmade and sewn myself, designed based off of what I seen in the film. I'm now going to take my prosthetic and start to adhere that to my face using an adhesive and a glue. I'm applying that on the prosthetic itself and also on the matching areas on my face, lightly tapping it to ensure it is tacky and almost dry, and then lining it up and pressing it down firmly. As you can see, my prosthetic goes way past my forehead, so it blends out nicely underneath my wig. I didn't apply any adhesive under that area because it would go straight up onto my actual hair. So mainly just the forehead area where you need it to really stick down and adhere the most. I'm then going to repeat those exact same steps, lightly tapping and getting that adhesive tacky, and then firmly lining up and pressing those down. I made sure that the cheekbones were as even as possible, and I really wanted to pull them further back on the face to give myself that bloated and swollen effect. Corpses that decompose underwater get really gross and swollen and puffy and then eventually rise back up to the surface. I really did my research with this and wanted it to be quite gruesome, so that's why I went for more of a prosthetic version. I'm using a little cheat method here and really trying to pull my face upwards to give it a really scary cat-like vibe, and I'm just using this micropore tape that you can get from the drugstore or the chemist. You pretty much just apply that to blend out any harsh edges, and the secret trick with this is that you do need to seal it with latex. I'm so glad that I went with prosthetics because it really changes my side profile, and for me that is something that I always look for when doing creative makeups. I've then just taken a wedge sponge and created a stipple sponge by picking and pulling at it. It's really important that you seal all of that tape so that you have a consistent texture to apply your makeup onto. To speed up this process, you can use a hairdryer in between just to quickly seal and dry all of those thin layers. Multiple thin layers are way better than a few thick ones. It gives a much seamless and better blend, but you can go in and spot treat any areas that are a little bit harder to either glue down or blend out. Now that the latex is dry, I'm going to start painting on the skin tone and all of the colours. I'm starting out with a white grease paint and applying some greys in there to get a really custom skin tone. This is such a thick and heavy duty product, so I'm going to gently pack that in all of the areas that I need it to, and then with a refined castor oil product, I thinned it out a little bit and blended it into the skin. Grease paints are really great because they are so highly pigmented, they cover up absolutely anything, and they're super waterproof as well because I did film my intro and outro in a lake. I then went in with the same colour and applied a little bit more white paint to it to get a highlight area. I popped that under my eyes, the centre of the forehead and the nose bridge, and also on the lid as well. Some of those little areas you may need to massage into the latex because there might be some slight bumps and holes, and then continue the paint job down onto your neck and ears. It's really important to complete the whole effect, so if you can, paint any skin that is visible apart from your costume areas. I set that heavily with a baby powder, getting all up in my ears and all of the spots I really didn't want to. It's really important to set your base if you're going to be applying powder products over the top. If you're contouring with creams, that's totally fine, but I wanted to do the majority of the work from here on out with shadows because you get a much softer effect. Taking a black eyeshadow base, I roughly packed that all over both of the lids and then went in with a fluffy brush with some black shadow and started to run that through my crease. I didn't want the eye makeup to be overly messy, I just didn't want it to be very neat, so I'm just going in quite inconsistently, tapping out those edges and trying to buff that down the sides of my nose. I find that with looks like this, when you're really starting to bring them to life and add definition, using a soft hand and a black eyeshadow is a lot better than going in with a harsh cream paint. What I'm doing here is just gently building up the areas that I really want to apply shading. After I was happy that I had a light outline of where I wanted to apply all of my paint, I took a grease paint and heavily thinned that down with some more castor oil and started to buff that around the edges to apply a hairline for myself for where my wig was going to come up to, and then also to contour the back of my neck, the sides of my jaw, and underneath my chin as well. This is just really going to slim the face and give a very hollow and scary effect. I then took a black eyeliner and heavily lined my top and bottom waterline, making sure that I got it in between all of my lashes and I didn't have any sort of a gap of my grey skin tone. Now that I have all of my base shading down, I'm just going to look back at my reference photos and start to add in those details that make it look very iconic and recognizable to the film. I deepened the outer corners of my lips and the very inside of them as well, just to make sure that they are nice and black. I then took this purple water-based paint and started to gently stipple that over the top of my grease paint, and I really pressed the sponge into the skin and twisted it so that I got the effect of broken capillaries coming through the skin. This is what happens when your body goes through like extreme trauma, so I really wanted to bring that effect through and start to apply lots of a mottled, really waterlogged effect to the skin. As you can see, I like to kind of jump around when I get closer to the end of my tutorial. I just really start working on every little bits and pieces and then checking with the monitor and my reference photos to ensure that I've got a look close enough to what I desire. Everything always does look quite different on camera than it does in real life as well, so it is really important to keep checking with your references to ensure that you are coming up and reading on screen how you like. I popped on a pair of lashes to give myself a very dramatic effect, and then I took some of the white grease paint, just pure white with no grey mixed in, and stippled that over the top as well. That gave such a freckly, mottled, moldy, disgusting look, and I think that's probably one of the best decisions that I made in this video. Once I had done that, I'm going to be all smiles from here on out, so I'm going to really dry my teeth down. They need to be as absolutely dry as possible because I'm going to be applying a black tooth enamel that is specifically designed for the teeth. It's mint flavored, it's long lasting, and you can only really remove it after you brush your teeth. So I'm going to keep my mouth open, apply all of that, let it dry down, and then buff out my lips even more. Up until this point, I just looked like some sort of a ghost or a being, but I'm popping on the iconic black tears. This is what makes her so recognizable, and it is really the standpoint of the movie, where you can just see her tears and puddles of her tears, and it's like this thick tar that excretes from her body. It is absolutely disgusting in the best way possible. So I tried to mimic the placement of her tears as best as I could and give them a really natural falling effect. This is probably one of my favorite videos that I've ever done, purely for the fact that I got to do such a disgustingly textured but beautiful look. The dress, the lashes, lips, and the hair make it so luscious, but she's still so gross and evil and dead that it's, you know, it's such a contrast. And I didn't think that I would love this tutorial as much as I did. I really kept working on it and adding little bits and pieces back and forth until I was 100% happy with how it was showing up on camera. And for me, that's always the final touches. I take a few selfies on my phone to see what it looks like in different lighting, and yeah, I mean, honestly, that's it, guys. This is one of my favorite videos, and I'm just going to paint my arms to match my face just to get the vibe going everywhere. I had to bring this all of the way up to pretty much my shoulders because the lace sleeves that I made were very obviously see-through. So I also stippled all of the colors on my hands. I made them a little bit darker than the face just to give that nice contrast yet again. The wig is luscious, the flower crown is cute. I was feeling evil but also pretty at the same time. So that is the completed look now. I filmed a montage with my husband and we edited this together to be the most creepiest 1-minute short clip. I hope you guys enjoy. Viewer discretion is advised. I feel accomplished after watching that back. I couldn't edit that clip at night at all. I couldn't even look at it or rewatch it. So to lighten the mood, I wanted to insert this clip of my husband and I feeling happy but also so tired after a very long night of filming. We started at about 3:30 a.m. and finished around 7 sunrise. It was the most amazing experience and I've really enjoyed every second of this collaboration. It's really inspired me to get back into my real, true horror self. Now I'm just going to quickly run you guys through some of the steps on the costume because I really did spend a lot of time hand making it. To stain and distress this costume, I used a tea and coffee dye. Now you pretty much apply all of that into a pot with some cold water and bring it to the boil. If you like, you can add more throughout the boiling process and even some food coloring as well, just to get a very deep stain. Every fabric takes to the coloring differently, so you do need to keep that in mind. Make sure that when you apply your hot coffee staining liquid that it isn't too hot. I let mine settle for about 10-15 minutes, but I find you get the best results when it is still kind of warm. Here is a quick before of the dress, so it was quite new. And then I put some floral flowers in there, some t-shirts, materials, fabrics, lace, anything that I thought that I could hand sew and hot glue together to make her costume. I packed that tightly into a bucket and poured in the coffee staining mixture, and just a heads up, black tea is ideal as well. Ensure this is completely submerged overnight. The next morning you should have a beautifully stained bunch of clothes. Some items might need to be stained twice. The wedding dress was quite heavy and thick. I sifted through all of the materials here and picked out the ones that I thought were nice and dark and completed. So that's a neck collar there, which was just honestly an atrocious t-shirt that I got from a dollar store. I went ahead and restained the dress because I needed it to be very vibrant and a creamy white color because that's the color that her dress was. So to distress this after I've all stained it, I cut up and made the shirt as it is, and for the bottom of the dress I wanted it to be intense. I wanted to make this creepy as hell. I removed most of this grey fabric because I thought it really ruined the colour palette, but I wanted it to be there for texture. So I cut into that, pulled, ripped at it, poked holes, and kind of left some strands as well. I found this amazing technique where if you poke and stab holes into your material, you can run over it with a grater and it really just opens them up. I created a lot of my initial holes with a knife, but I took my time and was very careful with this. In fast forward, it looks quite dangerous and vigorous, but you can use multiple things like scissors, tweezers, an unpicker for sewing, and just go ahead and cut and stab little holes and textures into all of the fabric. Go across all the edges, tear them up, and then when you think that you've got a nice edge, go back in and really heavily just grate that stuff up, and it gives it the most amazing texture. I did that to the bottom of the dress, and then I didn't film the headpiece, but essentially those flowers that I coffee stained, I hot glued onto a headband that I painted black with acrylic paint, and then I also hot glued down the lace and veil that I got with the wedding dress costume. I got the wig off of eBay, I think it was about $40, and yeah, guys, like honestly, this is the scariest thing I've ever made, and I'm very proud. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you really want to see more content like this from me, let me know in the comments below because it was so much fun. And lastly, a massive thank you to Warner Brothers. I literally cannot believe I have been sponsored by you guys. I appreciate it so much, and I'm pinching myself even saying that out loud. I hope you all enjoyed at home watching this, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.